As always, sisters and brothers, family and friends of Aboriginal, Alkebulan, African, Moorish ancestry. I'm your host, Brother Mwanga Sadaka Mantu Nemsayu Waset. And I thank you once again for taking the red pill of accurate knowledge and truth, information, evidence, highly and heavily spiced and seasoned with unconditional love. It's so much that I could talk about. It's so much that you could talk about. It's so much that's going on in our world. And we take this moment on this episode, you can call it a part one of what we call Black History Month. You know, that's the shortest month in the year. But I'm going to try to do a sort of different approach to what we're accustomed to in terms of Black History Month. And most time, the way we've been conditioned or programmed or socially engineered, we approach what we call Black History Month. We dwell on what I call contributionism. But history itself is more than just a contribution of a people that they have made historically or even contemporarily. So I want to start off by giving a shout out, a thunderbolt, lightning strike shout out to the engineer and director of these episodes, and he's the one and only. I'm tempted to look at him. I think he's in the studio right now, but he's the one and only and second to none. He just had a birthday. Pardon me for the interruptions and kind of dragging my feet at this time because me and a few others in the studio, we kind of been engaging in a lot of discussion on different topics here and there, and you name it. So it kind of got my mind kind of clouded up now, but I'm passing that on. I'm not taking the blame for that, but I'm giving it to this one and only and second to none, the engineer, executive engineer, and director, and the cameraman of these episodes. And as I stated, he just had a birthday, January the 17th. I think that's the birthday also of Muhammad Ali and Angela Davis. So I give a thunderbolt lightning strike shout out to him for his magnificent work with these productions and episodes of Purge, Purify, and Renew Your Mind. And I take this moment also to give a thunderbolt, lightning strike, birthday shout out to my wife, Miss Cynthia Ann Williams. I know she will be listening to these episodes, this episode, and giving her critique on it, but she had a birthday January the 25th. And I also give a thunderbolt lightning strike shout out to a future daughter-in-law, Miss Kamisha Taylor. Her birthday would be on the 30th of this month. And today that this episode is being produced, the 29th, is also a birthday to one of my paternal uncles, and he made his spiritual transition a few years ago, Mr. Leon Graham of Harlem, New York. And so with all that being said, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we here to rock steady, and our topic for today is history is best qualified. And I know many of you probably have already heard that particular quote before, but I'm going to quote it in more fullness because it's attributed to Malcolm X by history being qualified. He's famous for saying it also, but it comes from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I'm going to read it real quickly here. The full quote is this: history, above all our studies, is the most attractive and best qualified to reward our research, as it develops the springs and motives of human actions and displays the consequences of circumstances which operate more powerfully on the destiny of human beings. Again, history, above all our studies, is the most attractive and best qualified to reward our research, as it develops the springs and motives of human actions and displays the consequences of circumstances which operates more powerfully on the destiny of human beings. So history is best qualified. That's the theme. History is best qualified. And I make synonymous the word history with what I personally call life studies. And from an etymological point of view, perspective, the word history comes from a Greek word, historia, and it simply means to research, to investigate, to look into, to study, to turn over, right? And bear in mind that I'm aware of our use of the word our story, but I'm using the word history in its technical sense, right? Because everything has a history, and when it's fully understood what history is and the more expanded meaning of the word, then we'll get a better view, a better idea of its power and what history is, and the powerful benefits that are derived from what we call history. And history itself, regardless of what we have been told or regardless of what we think, history is more than just the name, dates, and places of events of the past. History, as I said a minute ago, is life itself, is life studies, and everything has a history. And if you have a desire to understand a particular thing, its reason for existing, how it functions and operates, right? Then you study its history. You study its history, because within its history will reveal its motive for existence, its reason for being, the purpose that it's serving. And also history itself is not what we have been told. Each of us is a living cell of history. Is a living cell of history. And as I stated to a friend of mine and family members before, just look at our existence right now. We living and walking and talking right now. But we learn how to walk. We learn how to talk. We learn how to do many of the things that we do right now in the so-called past. But they are alive within us right now. If I forget how to talk, I can't talk. If I forget how to walk, I won't be able to walk. If I forget how to do many of the things that was learned in the past right now, then I won't be able to do them. So history is not something that's left in the past. History is right now. It's alive right now. Each of us is a living cell, walking, talking, breathing cell of history. And sometimes our people, we ask the question, we make the statement, and to me it's a foolish statement that history won't help me get a job. Why should I need to learn that? Why do I need to know something in the so-called past, something that's dead and over with? It won't help me get make any money. It won't help me to get a girlfriend. It won't help me to expand my life. That's a lie. And I say it's a foolish statement. That means that any of us who make that statement, that we don't really know what history is. And as I said at the beginning, history is life itself. History is directly related to power, the regaining of power. History is directly related to economics. History is directly related to money, and so forth and so on. If that wasn't so, then why ask yourself, why have other people rewrote history? Why do they rewrite history? Why do they seek to control and manipulate what we call history? Ask yourself why. Because one of the reasons why is because they know, quote unquote, they know and they understand that history is directly related to the acquisition of power. History is directly related to life itself, whether an individual or a group of people live or die. It's the totality of life. It's the totality of life. So if you rob a people of the accurate knowledge and information of their history, then you have robbed that individual or people of their present and their so-called future. Think over that. Think over that. Because within the history of an individual or history of a people, as I stated to another friend of mine, that individual or that people, their psychology is in their history. The psychology of a people, the psychology of you and I is not found in a psychology book. That psychology is found in history. History reveals the psychology of an individual or the psychology of a people. And once we know that, you examine the history of an individual or a history of a people, you will find what will be revealed to you will be the strengths and weaknesses of an individual or a people. What coping skills that they have learned and that may be vital and necessary for the so-called present and the future. So my main point of what I have tried to say, or what I had endeavored to say, is that history is life itself. History is life itself. History is best qualified to reward our research. Because whatever we seek to understand or comprehend more fully is found in the history of a thing. And every quote-unquote thing has a history. The fountain pen that we write with, the paper that the paper has a history. The shoes have a history. The socks we wear has a history. The clothes we wear have a history. Everything has a history, has an origin, has a beginning. And if we seek to know about a particular thing and understand that particular thing at its depths and its reason for existence and the reason for coming into existence and the reason how it's used, how it functions, operate, we must study its history. So history is a form of consciousness. History is a form of power, of personal power. It's all around us. It's the record of a people. We have an educational history. I mean, you go seeking a job. They may ask you, what's your educational background? Do you have a resume? Do you have a transcript? That's your history. That's your educational history. Tell that whoever is seeking, tell them something about your education, your so-called learning, your skills, your capabilities, your potentialities is revealed in your history, your educational history. If you go to the doctor with some kind of ailment, the first thing most of them ask you, what do you have a medical record? Can we have access to your medical record? Because your medical record in this instance is revealing something about you in a personal sense that may be useful to the doctor. Maybe, it may not be. Could be for righteous purposes, it could be for unrighteous purposes. But think over that. The past is never dead. It's not even past. The past is never dead. So bear with me, sisters and brothers, for a few more minutes, even though it may appear to many of you that I may be struggling to try to highlight this point, and I may be. But so what? So what? But in the end, the wrinkles will be smoothed out. Before it's over with, the wrinkles will be smoothed out. So this is just a brief introduction to this month, lead up to the end of this month, leading into that most famous month that we call Black History Month. That used to be called Black History Week. That was set in motion by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. I think around 1915 or 16, and he wrote a popular classic book in 1933 called The Miseducation of the So-Called Negro. And that book is still in print and still a classic book in terms of education. And Dr. Woodson, with that book, he demonstrated how our minds, so-called black people, and I've been using the term lately, might be kind of long to many of you, but I'm trying to highlight and give more clarification to who we are as a people. You know, and we are accustomed and been indoctrinated in this society. You know, we say black people, but even that word can be used effectively in terms of in a political sense. But most of our skins are not black, and then the word black, the way many of our historians and scholars have used it in the past, so-called past, is not just referring to our skin color, but it's referring to a certain type of consciousness, right? It may refer to a certain degree to what we call and perceive as being color, but color, consciousness, and culture. So it got different layers that we should explore to get a better understanding and comprehension of who we are as a people. So we Aboriginal people, Alkebulan people, so-called African people. The word Africa and African is still in use and still youthful. You know, because I can hear the thoughts of some of us as a people like, that's not the true name of that continent that we call Africa. That was named by a so-called Roman emperor, Roman general called Julius Africanus. Okay, it may be some truth to that, but that continent, just understand that the continent that's called Africa is inhabited in a majority sense by the people that I'm referring to, you and I. Just think about that. So we need to stop getting caught up and having a hang up over terms and names and titles that we apply to ourselves, because our names and titles that we have used historically have changed and continue to change. And maybe one day we'll sit down as a global people and decide on what historical identity by name we prefer to be called by, or that we will respond to as a people. So we shouldn't fall out over certain words and certain names and titles. Just know the people who are being talked about when we're talking about and referring to ourselves as a global people. And even though in terms of this Black History Month, we endeavor to explore some of the highlights of our global history, but at the same time, right here where I live, and I call it the backwoods and muddy waters and sugar ditches and dirt roads and magnolia trees and cotton fields of Greenville and Delta, Mississippi. We as a people in this country, and right here in this area where I'm speaking from, we don't even know our local history. We got a sense of it, but we need to know the totality and the fullness of our history. So we need to go back and restudy all over again, regardless of what other people say or don't say. We need to know ourselves. And your history, or our history, once again, even though it's life study, it's knowledge of self. And there's a phrase that says the knowledge of self, having the knowledge of self is the knowledge of self, the true knowledge of self, the accurate knowledge of self is the knowledge of this supreme force and power that we call God. So they get into a whole spiritual realm. Because the historical identity and the spiritual identity, they are synonymous. So we need to know the truth of our historical identity and our spiritual identity. In my viewpoint, my perspective, those are the two pillars, the historical and the spiritual, or the esoteric or metaphysical, that will raise us up, wake us up and raise us up. The historical information, the historical truth, the historical evidence and knowledge will wake us up. The spiritual or the metaphysical, the esoteric will transcend us, will raise us up, transcend. We will ascend, and so forth and so on. So it's time, sisters and brothers, it's time. In this age of Aquarius, 2,160 years, it's time. I made a post a few days ago, just in a general sense, that it's time for us to stop acting like the biblical people of the time of Noah. You know, Noah was so-called building the ark, and the people were, in my words, my language, were partying, booging down, having a good time. We as a people doing that today. Our survival and development is in jeopardy. And most of us and many of us, we still just partying, booging down, looking for a good time, gossiping, you know, playing games, making games. But our life is in jeopardy. Our survival is in jeopardy. I remember reading a quote that says something like this, that it's talking about a people or an individual, an individual or a people who will not do what it takes to liberate and save themselves are doomed forever. They're doomed forever. We crying the blues here in the backwoods of Greenville and Delta, Mississippi. We crying the blues. But we need to stop crying the blues. We got more to work with than our ancestors had in the so-called past. We got more to work with. We got more freedom and mobility. We got more at our fingertips to work with than they had. And to me, they did more with less. And we got more, seemingly more, and we can hardly do anything. Maybe we program mentally and psychologically. Maybe we have become mentally and psychologically lazy. Maybe our minds are enslaved. Maybe our minds have been twisted. These are questions that we should be asking ourselves day in and day out. Day in and day out. What are we doing to uplift ourselves? What are we doing to create a higher standard and quality of life in every aspect of life for ourselves every day? And how is this related to the beautiful ones yet unborn? If we say we real men and women, we say we are a child of God, well, why are we not doing the godly things? I used to say, and I still say, and it may sound jokingly to some, but it's not a joke. We we bullshit. We need to stop all the bullshit, the rat shit, the horse shit, the dog shit, the cat shit, the bird shit, the all shit. And all we have to do is start with ourselves. Don't point the finger at another brother and sister. Start with our so-called individual selves. And ask some of these questions. And be honest with ourselves. When we answer these questions, face the truth. Face the truth of self. And ask our individual selves, are we doing what it takes to make a positive, progressive contribution to the forward flow of life and history? That our children, that your relatives, that your friends, associates, and the beautiful ones yet unborn will be proud of? Or would they, at a future time, when they look back at us, and then they will drop their head because we betrayed them? Matter of fact, we as a people have betrayed those who came before us. As a people. Not all, but I'm looking at this from a people perspective, a collective perspective. We say that all thanks to the ancestors. All thanks for those who did what they did that came before us. But have we embraced the baton? Are we running with the baton in our hand and giving it the best that we can? We're coming up short. When I read the record, when I check the history, the contemporary history, think over that. Where is the personal pride? Where's our integrity? I'm not talking about what other people or other ethnic groups are doing or may not be doing, and how we have been despised and rejected. Yeah, we did rejected, stoned, but we destined, if we get up and do the work, to become the cornerstone, because we are that people. We have that potentiality within us, that spiritual power within us. But we must recognize it, and not only recognize it, begin to tap it and put it into practice on a day-to-day basis. If we sincere. If we sincere. If we say we truly love ourselves. If we truly love ourselves, then we will do the work. We will make a start. And self-love is related to history, to knowledge of self. It's still related to the accurate knowledge of self. Think over that. Because life studies, or history of self, individually and collectively, is knowledge of self. It is a spiritual, mathematical, scientific impossibility to truly love what you don't know. So in order to truly love ourselves more fully and more correctly, we must have what? An accurate knowledge of self, which is the accurate knowledge, information, and truth of the history of self. We can't escape it. You can't escape it. So in a minute, we'll bring this little talk to a close, and I hope it was beneficial to you in the listening audience. Hope it was beneficial to myself at the deepest subconscious level. But we must talk. We got to talk, and not just talk. We got to take the information, the evidence, and be inspired to put it into practice in our daily life. There's no other way. I used to say to a few friends and associates, it may have sounded like it was a joke or something to laugh at, but in my opinion it wasn't, even though it may have been hilarious. But not one of us gonna make a individual or family, establish a family contract with the system of things, and you and your family gonna be all right. It's not gonna work that way. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work that way, because we are unable to separate ourselves from the whole. It may be different levels that make up the whole in terms of your economic status, your vocational status, your knowledge and information status in life, but we still are part of the whole. It's said that a chain is no stronger than its weakest link. We connected. So the strength of the chain, the strength of the whole is determined by the weakest link. So it's each individual link that make up the whole or the chain is do whatever is possible to strengthen itself. Then the chain itself is strengthened. Because whether we like it or not, we connected. There is a connected, and there's no, in a sense, there's no true individual in the absolute sense of the word that exists. Think over that. Because even when we say, some of us say that we doing our individual thing, your so-called individual thing is not that much different from the individual thing of another individual. Especially that when you're living in a certain a similar environment or cultural environment, most of the time speaking the same language, using the same words. You're dressing the same, even though you're thinking you're dressing different, even though you may be dressing different from another individual in the country, in the world, in the society or regional or local level that you live on a different day, but you still buying and purchasing the same clothes, going to the same schools, getting the same miseducation, getting the same training. So where's the so-called individual person in the absolute sense of the word? Where is that person? Regardless of how different many of us strive to be, but in more ways than one, you're still similar to everybody else in a particular culture, in a particular society. So we need to do like James Brown, what he said, get on the good foot. Aretha Franklin told us to rock steady. Maybe many of us are satisfied and content being like what the Temptations said, riding on cloud 9. But the bottom line is we must wake up to the accurate knowledge and truth of ourselves, the historical knowledge of ourselves, and understand that having an accurate historical knowledge of ourselves, that is a form of power when it is expressed and put into practice. And that historical information is not just to make us feel good, and not just to be proud that we had made a certain positive contributions to humanity. That's good and fine, but the history of oneself is deeper than that. The purpose of it is more than just that. We must learn the lessons of history. We must learn the lessons. Learn certain coping skills that our people had already discovered that may be beneficial to our living and forward motion right now. That's found in the history, the life studies. Not just dates and events and artifacts of the so-called past. And matter of fact, you can't even escape history. Even if it's not in the so-called history books. History is all around us. It's on the walls, it's on streets, it's in buildings. It's everywhere. It is having its effect, positive or negatively, on our psychology, on our minds, on our behaviors, the cells in our bodies. We can't escape it. So because we can't escape it, that means it should, if we in our sane mind got a sense of sanity and responsibility and a sense of divine duty, then we will study and examine the accurate historical knowledge and truth that we call history. Because getting a good understanding or good comprehension of it will determine whether we live or die, whether we prosper or not, whether we pass on a more brighter future to those who I call the beautiful ones yet unborn. Think over that, sisters and brothers. Think over that. So I reiterate the quote that I said from the beginning, and the part of the same quote that I used as a title for this program and the future episodes to come next month in February. And the quote is from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I didn't say nothing about the Nation of Islam. I didn't say become a Muslim or that I'm a card carrying member of the Nation of Islam. I got I'm a Muslim, I'm this and that. I didn't say any of that. I'm just making a quote, a relevant, specific, and necessary quote. That's it. That's full of truth in it. The quote is this: history, above all our studies, is the most attractive and the best qualified to reward our research, as it develops the springs, think of that, the springs, the inner workings and motives of our actions, of human actions. It develops what's going on inside of us, our desires, our likes and dislikes, our self-honesty, our disciplines. The history is developing this, the study of it, the understanding of it, the comprehension of it. It develops the springs and motives of human actions and displays the consequence of circumstances, which operates more powerfully on the destiny of human beings. Think over that, on the destiny, our destiny. That's why history is best qualified. Dr. Amos Wilson got a book here, and I plan to try to use this book as a guide for these series. Just one of many books, but The Falsification of African Consciousness, Eurocentric history, psychiatry, and the politics of, he said, white supremacy, but I call it white domination. Because people who classify themselves as white is not supreme. Matter of fact, I have never seen a people or a person whose skin was white. So if you find a person, you know one whose skin is white, please bring forth. Now I've seen people whose skin, if we want to get into these skin color games, the skin tone more brown and black than someone being white, if we want to play those kind of games. And one of our great writers, James Baldwin, I'm paraphrasing, but he said that these skin games or skin colors is a political construct. It's a political mental construction that's applied in a social sense for domination and control of people. It's a mental figment of the mind. It's a mental construction that's applied socially, economically, and politically. And when I say politics or politically, I'm not talking about government. Maybe talking about self-government, but I'm not talking about referring to government as we know of it. In a relationship between two or more people, that's politics. That's a political relationship. That's political. Because political deals with the exercise of power. And the exercise of power is not necessarily unrighteous or negatively or abusive. The relationship between parents and children, that's politics, that's political. But theoretically, it's a relationship that love is involved, compassion is involved. So we need to plumb the depths of words that we use. Because power doesn't necessarily mean abusive. or manipulation of another individual against their best interest. No, that's not true. Any relationship between two or more people is political. That's it. That's it. So history is best qualified. History is best qualified. Dr. Amos Wilson once said, or wrote it in one of his books, history is not just written in books. It's contained in every facet of life. History is everywhere, written in the streets that we walk down, in every building, every highway, in every yard. Everywhere we go, it's there. It's shaping, it's transforming, it's creating, it's blocking, it's constructing. In fact, one of the reasons why it may have been reduced in terms of history books per se is because it is hidden everywhere. Meditate on that, brothers and sisters. It's hidden everywhere. There's a direct connection between history and economics, history and power, history and money. History itself is what I prefer to call life studies. So brothers and sisters, I close on that note. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for tuning in or ingesting. Thank you for ingesting the red pill of accurate knowledge and truth, highly and heavily spiced and seasoned with love. Peace out.